This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter.
And welcome into a brand new edition of the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast, brought to you by Bet Online. I will not forget to read the read. I have it in my hand right now, so we will take care of that here in just a bit. Desmond Johnson here with you, with Carolina Panthers Sports Illustrated beat writer Schuyler, Callihan, and the Carolina Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart. Here to recap the Panthers falling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-21 on Sunday, in effect ending any playoff hopes for the Carolina Panthers. We'll get into the implications of that today. The Panthers do take on the Saints in the season finale next week. We'll talk about that. For a portion of the fan base, the part of the year that you've been waiting on, apparently the entire year, is finally here. We can finally start talking about the offseason and the draft and what's going to happen with Steve Wilks. Were Stu and Schuyler convinced that Steve Wilks is the man for the job, or is there someone else out there that could be in contention? That's all here as well. It's Monday, so it's open mailbag. I know a lot of you guys have got a lot of stuff to say about what happened yesterday during that Buccaneers game. You can comment on the YouTube video that's live right now at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio, or on the Facebook watch video that's on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio Facebook page. You can listen to this audio down the road here later on today on the Bleav Podcast Network. Before we get into all of that, we might even do a little tell them why you're mad too, because I had a couple things I was frustrated about this weekend. We'll get into that too. But before we do that, a word from our sponsors at Bet Online. Football is back. Bet Online remains your #1 source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts, and where we typically start on a Monday is a look at the box score. The Carolina Panthers fall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-24. We'll just open it up here, conversation, as we recap this. Guys, usually I ask you, what was the one thing you took away from the previous day's game, or the previous day's game? Stu, let's start with you. After watching that game yesterday and the ebbs and flows of it, what's the one big takeaway you could take away from the Panthers falling to the Bucs yesterday?
For the fact that we had a game that was meaningful, second to the last game of the season, where we could make the playoffs, division rival, division opponent, our secondary, on our defense, playing, second, third string guys, and almost beat Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you would have asked me that, fourth week of the season, I wouldn't, personally feel led to believe that would be believable. I would have hoped, like I was hoping. I was very hopeful all season, guys.
You've been very optimistic the entire year.
I was hopeful throughout the whole course of the season because I played this game, and all it takes is one play to really spark a season sometimes, and we got the opportunity to see that under Coach Wilks. So I mean, looking back at the game makes me look back over the season, and I'm hopeful still, for the Carolina Panthers under the leadership of Coach Wilks. The way he was able to get the locker room to play the way they played all season under him. The way they fought yesterday. I mean, there was a lot of things that they didn't do well. Giving up, deep ball touchdowns to Mike Evans when he hasn't received a touchdown, since week 4 of the season. Stuff like that happens, but they still found a way to put themselves in position to win a football game. And that to me says they're building character. They're figuring out who they are as players, and they're able to do that because of Coach Wilks. So my head is high, as I'm sure everyone's head should be high.
The fan base is in a bit of a flux because it's from what I see on Twitter and Facebook where there's a segment that feels, I guess, justified because they've said the whole time we're not making the playoffs. We need to be on draft position, blah, blah, blah. And now we can finally talk about that legitimately. There's another half that's kind of confused as to what to do next based off of what we've seen in the past month. You, my boy Bleav, Bleav in Carolina Panthers super fan. That game was a heartbreaker. Them boys fought hard, though. I say we run it back with Wilks and Darnold, give coach the opportunity to bring in his own staff. The foundation is there. Schuyler, what was your big takeaway watching this matchup between the Panthers and the Bucs? The Bucs clinched the NFC South second year in a row, 30-21 winners over Carolina.
I would say probably Steve Wilks is the guy. I mean, I'll just get right into it. I mean, that was my weekly column this morning. And I said in my tweet, I Bleav that, I was originally planning to wait till the end of the season, end of next week to give my opinion on Steve. But I've kind of gave that out here a few times, made it kind of known that I Bleav that Steve is the right guy. And I think he is. I mean, people want to give him crap for losing yesterday or, not making defensive adjustments in the second half or whatever the case may be. But I mean, I'm gonna tell you why I'm mad right now, Des. Like, I mean, it's
here you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I was waiting for one of us to dip into it. I hadn't even got to my takeaway yet, but yeah, go. Go.
Everybody is upset that they didn't make the so-called adjustments on Mike Evans. What was Steve Wilks supposed to do? What was Al Holcomb gonna do? He was down to
your outrage.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Down to his third and fourth cornerback, C.J. Henderson and Keith Taylor Jr. You're having a number 3 covering a number 1 and a number 4 covering a number 1 and a number 2. The only other option you had was a 35-year-old Josh Norman who was making coffee 4 days ago before the game.
Yes.
He's not in game shape. Like, he's not ready to come in and make an impact, and he's not just going to come in and shut down Mike Evans after C.J. Henderson and Keith Taylor failed to do so. So, like,
otherwise he would have been employed. He wouldn't have been working. He wouldn't have been owning a coffee shop working. He would have been working for somebody in the NFL.
And it's not just that, but it's all along. It's the Panthers fan base, and I'm sure it's probably like this everywhere. The moment something goes wrong, it's like, okay, the perfection's not there anymore, or the hope is gone because they can't make the playoffs, and it's like, oh, we need to change everything. No,
rip it all down.
Like, what has happened the last 12, 13 weeks with this team has been remarkable. For them to go from 1-5, trading their best player, trading one of their top receivers at the time, to being in a spot where they can win out and get into the playoffs, like, that's a very hard thing to do because you don't know how that locker room is going to respond to a new vision or a new culture, that Steve Wilks is trying to instill. And they clearly responded. But to me, like, it's just the perfection of, oh, they've got to make the playoffs and they got to make a deep run for Steve to get the job. Like, no, what he has done with the hand that he was dealt was more than what anybody could ask for. And for me, like, again, you go through everything that they've been through. 3 different starting quarterbacks, 3 different defensive line coaches. Like, that's incredible. Yeah. Like, and all of a sudden you just want to throw out that progress just because, they didn't make the playoffs. Like, no.
They weren't supposed to make the play. They were 1-5 at one point this year. Like, they, to be honest, I'm kind of mad at Tampa Bay. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I'm mad at Tampa because they gave the rest of the NFC South hope. Tampa Bay should have ran away with this division a month ago. Like, real talk. Like, because everybody else, like, we have built-in excuses as to why we didn't make the playoffs this year. We fired our coach after week 6. We traded off our best player, like you said, Schuyler. We had built-in reasons as to why we should have had no business being in the position we were in yesterday. Yet here we were, where we could have won out and won the whole thing. And it's because of Tampa. And it's because of what Tampa's been doing the past month or so. We should have known last week when we were recapping this. This is my big takeaway. The secondary, we talked about the secondary being one of our strongest units in the preseason. It was deep. Like, we had a lot of dudes in the secondary, and they kept adding some. Who knew that by the time we got to the end of the year, the secondary would be our downfall? And my biggest takeaway from yesterday was it doesn't matter what you scheme, doesn't matter what you want to do. You're only as good as your personnel. And your personnel showed up yesterday in a manner we did not want them to show up in. We literally told Tom Brady, hey, look, we're not going to really blitz you. We're going to try to get to you with our front four. We're going to drop everybody back. And we're going to let you just do what you do because we don't think you can do it anymore. And Tom Brady was like, okay, cool. And he went off and threw for 432 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those 3 long-ass Mike Evans touchdowns. I think 2 were on Keith Taylor. One of them was on somebody else.
CJ
Anderson. Yo, God. That one's the one. Yeah, let me –
I
erased it from my memory until you said his name. What the hell was CJ Anderson doing on that touchdown? It's almost like he got caught daydreaming, like in the middle of the play, and then realized, oh, the ball's coming this way. And by that time, like, that was 3
What's
steps
more
out.
aggravating about that play wasn't that he got caught looking in the backfield, but it was after the play where he could have still probably made a tackle inside the 10, and he just gave up. Like,
he gave up.
Yeah.
I don't. Steve Wilks don't like that.
I think that
I want to get this out before I forget, but more of why I'm mad is everyone's complaining about Steve Wilks taking that delay of game instead of burning that timeout. If he burns that timeout, they don't get the ball back at the end of the game.
right.
That was chef's kiss. The way
The exit, Schuyler, to that point, how the end of the game was managed
Was perfect.
was perfect. And
Absolutely
that right there is if that's the reason why he should have the job.
If they just had an outside edge guy on that punt and could have got the punter with the messed up snap,
which, by the way, that was probably the play of the season. Like, my man went into game mode.
I was like, can you even do that? Like what he did?
I was like, surely we're about to tackle this guy and be in great field position.
Man,
but
he was running to the left and a right-handed kicker. Like he's a right side. He kicks with his right foot. So to be able to do that on the running to the left, that's insane. So he saved the Tampa Bay season to me.
All right, I want to give some sugar out.
Okay.
Sam Darnold.
Talk about it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like my man played football yesterday. My man's been playing football since he's gotten the start. My man's been putting us in positions to win. Yeah, we had a little fumblerooski yesterday and whatnot. That's going to happen. But the way that he took instruction at the end of the game, marching down the field, I mean, that one play where he scrambled out of the pocket, he looked like a cat. Yeah. I mean, and just the awareness that he had to know that Chuba Hubbard was over there in the flat, his preparation or something, I don't know what it is, but his awareness as a quarterback yesterday was elite. And the way he was just throwing dimes every time there was a passing situation, he was throwing dimes. And I don't know what everyone else is thinking right now, but going into this offseason, that's the Carolina quarterback next year.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, those 2 fumbles, like I'll ask Steve today about it, but the first one where it looked like he wasn't ready for the snap. So I don't know if some miscommunication there or not. But the second one, I don't put that on Sam. That's on put that on. Yeah, Icky got burned. Anthony Melton. Burned.
He really did.
That's not on Sam. Like, I mean, yes, you want to protect the football, but you're getting hit from the blind side.
Yeah,
like that's a tough ask for a quarterback.
But even with all those plays happening, right?
He still shook.
His mental was not shook, and that to me is important.
Especially the final drive. He set them up to get at least a chance for a potential Hail Mary. Brady Christensen had the false start, but even after that, there was even I think on that final play, for half a second, I thought Chuba was about to pop it.
I did too. I was like,
too.
is this going to happen this way? Is how it's going to go
Game
down?
of Miami, New England. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, here it goes.
Oh man. You know, yesterday, actually, I think I got fully convinced on Sam Darnold yesterday. Like, to Stu's point, just watching him it was the first time we've seen him really comfortable, not just in a Panther uniform, but in an NFL uniform for a duration of a game. Like, he looked like he was starting to get command of the offense. And I'm not really even all that mad that we didn't run for a whole lot. We ran for 22 carries, 74 yards. The Tampa Bay's defense really appreciated having Vita Vega back. And it felt like we were scheming, thinking he was going to be back, because we started off play action. I thought of both of you the very first play of the game. We were both been screaming, all of us have been screaming for them to do some play action to start out. Very first play of the game, to do some play action, get down the field deep a little bit. So I was like, damn, okay, they might be opening this up for Sam today. And Sam played a good game. He played a game. They didn't get blown out. They lost by 6, and he had a chance to kind of win it.
What, 340? 340?
They were up. Yeah, he threw for 341. 23 for 37, 341, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 2 sacks. His quarterback rating was 108. Like, and we're sitting here talking about CJ Stroud. Like, that's another thing too, because
I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I'm sure both of you guys probably watched or saw some highlights by now of the college football playoffs from Saturday. I will say I was impressed with CJ Stroud of Ohio State. He was dropping some dimes on folks in that game. I am irritated at ESPN. Because I had a house full of people. It's New Year's Eve. More than half of them are female. They don't care. Although my mother-in-law is an Ohio State fan, so she was interested in that game.
Hey, you better be careful talking about your women.
Game kicked off at 8:00. How do you have a 4-hour-long college football game that ends at midnight on New Year's Eve? Like, we literally had to figure out how, because it's 11:58. I'm looking at the clock. I've got the game on. They're getting ready to go kick it, and in my head, I'm like, they're going to do this right at midnight. Like, how am I supposed? My kids are. What am I supposed to do? So I got overruled. I had to change the channel to Dick Clark's Rockin' Eve or whatever it was, and watch them miss the field goal on my phone, and then get back over to it at 12:01. Like, they literally, the ball missed as the clock struck 0. Like, you couldn't have wrote it any better. But that's on ESPN. Like, it should have been done by 11:30. Send them off to wherever they're going to go.
I mean, but if you're a true Ohio State and Georgia fan, though, that's the way you want to bring in the new year. Because Georgia fans right now,
well, not Ohio State, because
they're going to remember this.
They did not want to bring it that way. That ball landed in 2023, and it did not land where they wanted it to go. Shout out to TCU, because I was not aware how good they were. They went up and down the field on Michigan all day Saturday. So that's January 9th. And I bring that up because a portion of our fan base is looking towards the draft, and I keep hearing CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, all these guys. Schuyler, he isn't a fan of any of them, if I'm not mistaken, unless that's changed. I'm not really either.
CJ Stroud has the talents. Like, you can see the traits that he has. Strong arm. He can make just about every throw. Athletic, mobile, but I'm just not – I don't get that franchise feeling out of not only just him, but any of these guys. Like Bryce Young, same thing. Got a lot of talent. But are any of those guys going to be a franchise-changing type quarterback? I could be completely
last year's class. Kind of like last year's class. We were hyping Malik Willis and trying to convince ourselves to draft him in the first round, and really he was a third-round grade. No, you wasn't. Me and Schuyler, we were talking ourselves into it by the time we got close to the draft. But so that brings up my question to bring us around a neat bow. Is Sam Darnold going to be the starting quarterback in 2023 should he be the starting quarterback for Carolina in 2023?
Yes.
I think so too, because you still got Matt Corral too. Who's going to be back.
I mean, there was a touchdown pass. Who was it to yesterday? Shi Smith.
Yeah.
He ran a post and there was an underneath route that kind of it was like degrees of separation.
Perfect time.
And just the timing and but the confidence, the wherewithal to say, "Oh, there it is." Sling it in there, no question.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. That was elite. But not elite at the throw, elite at the read. Mm-hmm. He read that defense. He knew exactly where Shi Smith was going to be and where the ball needed to end up. Those are the throws that make or break a guy. And you bring in a rookie guy that has talent and whatnot. Can he read a defense? And can he do it ASAP when it matters, especially in red zone?
Because this team's built to kind of win next year if they can figure that out, and they might have figured it out over the past.
Yeah, I mean,
month.
Jake, listen, if we had J.C. Horn yesterday,
we win that game.
We dominate the game. We dominate the game.
We were up 14 going into the fourth quarter, right?
Right. I mean, we won the first half. We won the second quarter. And like J.C. Horn's value just went through the roof. And so get him healthy. Yeah. Like, you know, like our defense is our linebackers are straight. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Shaq, but if it's me, I'm bringing Shaq back, keeping him around. Peyton, man. I mean, the way he played yesterday was inspiring. Like him, Frankie Louvu, like we really got a good defense. You know what I'm saying? Secondary answer the call there in some areas. Man, there's a lot to be excited about.
If you look at it this way, like had Sam been healthy and been the starting quarterback, just say since Steve Wilks took over, they're in the playoff.
Yep.
I guarantee you they're in the playoffs. So those fans that are concerned about Sam coming back or who should be the quarterback next year, just think of it that way. Had Sam started since the Los Angeles Rams game, this team would more than likely would be in the playoffs right now.
I'll go a step further. Think of the 2 games this season that the NFL had to apologize to the Carolina Panthers for blown calls on Monday.
How different
that cost them games. Yeah. Week 1, Cleveland, the fake spike. Everyone's forgotten about that. When fake spiked the ball, they didn't call it, and that cost us the game. Or the Atlanta game where they called the penalty on DJ Moore for taking off his helmet when he wasn't on the field. Then later on that day, somebody else did it, and they didn't get called for the penalty. The NFL had to apologize to us twice. That's 2 wins. That's literally 2 wins that got taken off of our thing here, where yesterday wouldn't have even been for the division. It would have been.
We'll call it. We got Jacoby, and then we got a fake flag.
Yeah. And then some of the other games that we should have won and just kind of farted away. The Jets game comes to mind. Man, there was so much opportunity this year, and it just felt like for us to even be in this position yesterday after everything we had to watch throughout the whole year was pretty remarkable, and that's on Steve Wilks. So, like, the other question besides the Sam Darnold question is, is Steve Wilks the front runner for the coach right now?
Darn Skippy, boy.
He should be. I mean,
and the other reason I say why he is because if you look at this team, the first 5 games of the season with Matt Rule, it looked like a disorganized mess that had no chance of ever figuring it out, right? Yep. Steve Wilks had that thing starting heading in the right direction in 2-3 weeks and kept on building on that week after week after week. How do you take a team that looked like absolute clutter? And there's another word that I'd like to say for it, but I can't say it on here. Cluster, you know what? But it looked like a cluster, you know what? To a team that was organized.
This is a family show.
Don't turn it up.
The playoffs in week 17, like to take it from one end of the spectrum clear to the other, it just speaks volumes to what Steve Wilks did.
Yep. Willie Smith actually brings up a very good point. I'm mad at fans talking about the draft before we commit to the coach. That's
I'm gonna tell you why we mad. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Willie Smith, you sound like a general manager, boy.
Yeah, man, he on point. But that's a good point. They got to figure out this coaching thing, and I think they will. I think here's my question, because it's funny that people are like, why haven't they took the interim tag off of Steve Wilks? He's doing such a good job. Well, they couldn't because of the Rooney Rule. You have to interview 2 minority candidates before you make a decision. Here's my question. With Steve Wilks being a minority candidate, is he one of the 2 that they have to interview, or are they interviewing 2 additional minority candidates before they can?
Got to be 2 additional, and that's the only problem I have with the rule. I love the rule. I think it's a good idea. But when you have a guy that is a minority and you believe is the guy, and if you want to hire him, I don't feel like you should waste other people's times.
It should be honored.
Just go through it.
Like it. Because anybody that interviews for this job, if they've been paying attention, they're going to be like, man, we already know Steve getting this. Like, why are you calling us? Like, how are you supposed to even get people to come in seriously to interview if you kind of already know who you want? There should be an addendum or something to this rule because it's the Steve Wilks addendum.
How crazy would it have been? I mean, obviously, you're asking for a lot, but if a team would have been in this situation like the Panthers, and they go from 1-5 with or 1 and 4 with Matt Rule, Steve Wilks comes in. Say they won the Super Bowl, like obviously they're not hiring anybody else.
Got to interview 2 guys.
That's a good point. There should be like some type of addendum. Call it the Wilksy rule.
Yeah, call it the Steve Wilks rule.
Or just come in there as an interim, you start balling out.
Brad Holt, super fan for Bleav in Carolina Panthers. Thanks for joining us, Brad. He says Wilks and Holcomb's lack of adjustments in that game cost us the loss. I think you might have came in a little bit late because we addressed that. What were they supposed to do? They didn't have anybody else to throw on Mike Evans. Like there was one part of the game where Josh Norman showed up. Yeah, Josh Norman came out there and guarded Mike Evans, I think once, and Brady like missed him entirely or something. And I think Norman came in that last drive. He was out there, but clearly the Panther fan base thought that the savior was going to be Josh Norman. From what I saw online, like why Norman playing? Like he wouldn't get burned by Mike Evans. If it was 2015, he wouldn't. But it's not 2015.
If anything, Panthers fans should know that was probably not going to happen. Just look last year at Cam Newton when he came back. He was not going to be the savior for that team. Like it's a completely different player.
Hey, Brad, what you have to understand, playing football, you can't just – I don't care who you are. Maybe at the quarterback position you can do this, but at a position such as DB where you're active every single play, you got to be on every single play. One bad step, one slow turn, and you lost.
Yep.
There's a lot that goes into the preparation in playing the DB position. Not to say Josh Norman doesn't have the elite ability, but as far as the team's preparation, the other guys that played that position yesterday were more prepared, and you have to trust that. Now, as far as their ability and what showed up on tape yesterday, now that's something that you have to live and die by that, because at the end of the day, the coaches' jobs are to put guys in position to succeed. Now, for them to not put Josh Norman out there yesterday, they must have known something and felt something and believed something. And so the nature of the game is that we would have loved to see this heroic moment of one guy coming in and saving the day. But at the end of the day, I can tell you this. I saw Peanut Punch show up yesterday.
Yeah, and they called it on the air too. They knew exactly what it was.
I haven't seen that until yesterday. Guy clearly make a great play. Great. Was it Godwin? I think it was Godwin. Great catch, getting some yards after catch. Boom.
And it was intentional. Like he knew what he was doing when he ran up on him. Yeah.
If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say that Josh Norman told somebody about that. Like, hey, we go into this game, make sure you knock the ball out. So, I mean, there's things that are not seen, on there's things that are happening behind closed doors when you bring a guy like Josh Norman in that actually betters the team and helps the team is what I'm saying. And so Coach Wilks, Holcomb, y'all better get off them boys.
They did what they could. Nobody, and even that, it doesn't matter who was in the secondary. Like Tyler King saying Norman should have played more because he was bringing energy to the defense. I'm sorry, but Keith Taylor was not the answer across from Evans. Should have put Norman on him. The answer for Mike Evans was J.C. Horn. And he wasn't available yesterday. There wasn't anybody else on our secondary that was going to cover him man on man. Plus,
and if you double them, then now you leaving the field wide open for Tom.
Yeah. Here's the thing that squashes all of that, because everyone's blaming the secondary. They're looking at the wrong spot. You were giving Tom Brady 6 to 7 seconds to throw
time in the world.
Like he had no pressure. Like he's going to kill you. Like it don't matter who's in the secondary guard. You can't. There's no secondary in the NFL that can cover for 6 to 7 seconds without pass interference or something, because it's just too long. And you're going to let the GOAT have all this time to throw, and you're only rushing 4, sometimes 3. I mean, it just set up. I was more upset with that they weren't bringing any pressure until they absolutely needed to. There was times where Brian Burns went in the game. I guess they were giving him a spell. I took also, when I was saying you're only as good as your personnel, I don't know if I want a quarterback top 10. I might want the best defensive end, the best pass rusher. Like they need to keep building this defense, because you can get by with a game manager quarterback and the what they have on offense and have an elite defense. That's the kind of stuff that teams fear. They don't like playing teams like that. They would much rather play a team that's going to go up and down the field and try to outscore you than a team that's going to try to beat you up.
Having depth at each position that like really is a difference maker on the field is huge. Say Brian Burns needs a spell. You got another dog that comes in. It's like, oh man, I thought I was going to get a break. Nah, you ain't getting the break.
We had a Son Reddick this year. If we had a Son Reddick still this year too on the other side of Brian Burns,
Jesus
like
Christ.
it just would have and added Frankie Louvu. Like, I mean, I think we need to really sit down and ask ourselves, like Schuyler said in this draft. I don't know if quarterback is necessarily it. For if they let's say it follows the plan we think and they hire Steve Wilks and they keep Ben McAdoo or whatever. Although somebody did ask a little bit earlier, Gerald Mason, if Wilks gets the interim tag off, what's the possibility of him bringing Pep Hamilton back home to Charlotte as OC? I would also like to keep Darnold and see what you got in Corral. Pep is in Arizona, I think. Didn't he stay in Arizona? I think.
I can't remember where he's at now.
He turned it down because Rule was still the head coach, and the theory was that he was a lame duck, pretty much. But yeah, Pep is from Charlotte. I wouldn't mind him coming in as the OC, although the stench on Ben McAdoo is kind of worn off the past month, to be honest. Houston. He's in Houston. That's right. He might be getting a quarterback first pick because they're going to be the number one pick in the draft. So he might stick around.
Yeah, he might stick around. See what he can do with that.
Bryce Young or CJ Stroud might do something for him in Houston. We just hadn't had a pass rush. Brad Holt, I agree, we haven't had a pass rush at all this year. I said it on the Thursday episode. A good friend of mine, a coach here in the area, had told me a long time ago, it don't matter what you plan if your quarterback's on his ass all day. Like, it just don't matter. If you can get to him, then it changes it. If you can't get to him, though, it changes everything. And again, you can't give Tom Brady 6 or 7 seconds to throw a football every play. Yeah. Like, it's just not going to work out in your favor. And we found that out yesterday. Tyler, do we know why Barno is always inactive? He could have got the speed off the corner with Burns. Barno is a cornerback, isn't he?
No, DN. The biggest thing with Barno is he was always going to be a project. Like, he's a long, lanky, kind of had the Brian Burns type build. Like when Brian came in, but Barno, he's kind of like a one-trick pony. He doesn't really have a whole lot of tools to his belt right now, and that's something that they're spending a lot of time with this year. He's trying to get his strength built up. So, this was always kind of going to be a long-term thing for him. He's probably never going to – I don't want to say never, but I don't think he's ever going to develop into like an every down type player. He can definitely be a very good situational pass rusher, but not right now.
So we'll have more time to discuss the future, of course, going forward. I think we're gonna. I don't know if we didn't really fully decide if we were gonna do continue doing 2 a week now that we're out of playoff contention, or if we're gonna go to the 1 a week format. We'll still be around. We've got fans that have been with us throughout. Just Don't Care says the season has ended, but I'm glad we got this podcast. Looking forward to this becoming my top Panther source for info and fun discussions. Thanks, fellas. We appreciate you. Just Don't Care and everybody else that's joined us this year. Our audience has grown considerably with the addition of Jay Stu and the season itself. I was talking to John Ellis on Twitter last night, who has a show down in South Carolina and is a good Panther knowledgeable guy.
I like John Ellis.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And we were talking, and basically it was just like, I was just like, we as a Panther fan base we should give thanks to Steve Wilks because he made the rest of the season interesting. And where we were at after week 6 at 1-5, I know me and Schuyler were looking at it like, because we just did this last year. And I did it the year before, where it was just like, can we trudge through another October, November, December of just lackluster football, nothing behind it, players going through motions, and towards the end last year we were getting blown out. I think Tampa blew us out last year. Yep. So to go from there in 2 months to go to here where we're actually excited about the future of the Panthers and have things to talk about, that's on Steve Wilks. I feel like that should be a notch on his resume when Tepper's looking at all this. I have to think Tepper has seen how the team has latched themselves onto Steve Wilks. I do want to ask you this question, though, Schuyler, while we're here, because this is a bit of Panther news. I saw the NFL Players Association is suing the Panthers or something for the field conditions from the week before against Detroit. Do you have any info on that or what's going on with that?
I don't know much more about it. I'm going to try to figure out more about it today. I know they filed some sort of grievance against Carolina. And here's my thing. Like, yes, I understand that the surface is probably hard to deal with. Turf is already a pain in the you-know-what whenever – when you're playing on that compared to grass because it's not as giving. It's going to be even worse when you're playing on frozen.
Schuyler want to cuss today so bad.
it feels like cement essentially when you get tackled on a frozen turf, pretty much. But my thing is, what is Carolina supposed to do? Like how are they supposed to prevent that? Put some heaters on the ground and just face it towards the turf to warm it up. Like they said they wanted to delay it. Okay, well, if you delay it for 20 minutes, the temperature's not going to go up 30 degrees.
Yeah, it's still going to be 0. It's going to be cold all day.
And I know there's probably like some heating systems and stuff that turfs have. I don't know if Carolina has any. I kind of doubt they do.
The thing is, we're not a cold weather city like that. So, like, if we were in Minnesota, like the Minnesota University of Minnesota, where the Vikings played.
Green Bay
before their stadium opened up, like their field is actually heated. Because it has to be heated. Otherwise, you'd have these things to talk about, such as hard ground.
I think Green Bay is like that too. I think Lambeau Field is like that, isn't it? And Soldier Field. I want to say they have something on that field to keep them thawed out. Because again, you're playing near Canada.
But to ask the Carolina Panthers to spend money on something that you don't need regularly, come on.
I would like them to go back to grass, to be honest. I know
that would be beautiful.
And the players have asked for it. I know the players have come out and said, hey, we've talked to Tepper, we want grass. I think Tepper changed it because he's using the facility for other like concerts and stuff, right? So the wear and tear of it, MLS soccer plays there. So
I get it. It's expensive, but it's possible to do grass and still have all those events and stuff. Look at Heinz Field. Tepper knows exactly from Pittsburgh. They have concerts in that thing all the time.
Yep.
It's just going to cost more to facade it and everything. But hey, if you want both,
my boy Blue says it's cold AF in Detroit. I almost cussed myself. I don't want to hear no more whining out of them. They play in the NFC North. That's another thing that's kind of stuck in my craw. Like really,
I'm gonna tell you why we messing.
Out of all the teams that could have complained about cold weather or whatever, is Detroit. Detroit's the one that's complaining about it. I mean, like maybe y'all should play outside more often. Maybe that would help. Because y'all play in a dome in Detroit, like it's almost like they were shocked it was this cold outside or something.
Like I get the argument. Like as a player, like if I was like for a second, just pause it for a second. So I'm playing for Detroit. I play indoors. I probably practice indoors, and whatever the practice conditions for me in Detroit, it's made to be manageable to where I'm not giving myself extra wear and tear. So if I'm traveling to another city in a stadium, my expectations are, okay, we as a league, we're taking care of the players. I step on the field, I'm thinking to myself, what is this? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm not ready for this. And so, like, you from the opposing team, like talking about, the Carolina Panthers and what they got going on. Yeah, you can say whatever it is that you want to say that's on your mind. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm pretty sure Carolina Panther players came out there and was like, ooh, this surface is hard, but you know what?
Yeah.
I got to make do. This is the bank. This is the Bank of America Stadium. I got to make sure I take care of my job and do what I got to do because I ain't about to get fired over what I'm about to say about this field.
You said it, Stu. You said it when you did the walk around outside before the game last week that the Panthers were out there practicing, doing their thing. There wasn't a line in sight except for the kicker. It's the only dude out there.
And so, like, it's easy for the home team to put that in their brain in a sense of like, okay, mind over matter. The field conditions, it is what it is. It can't matter. So let me just lock in here. The opposing team, like, hold up, wait a minute. I was not expecting this. Coach, what's going on? Oh, we got to play with this? All right. Well, this is stupid.
They knew for 2 weeks. They knew for 2 weeks how cold it was going to be in that game.
They didn't know about it. I don't think they knew what that field was going to feel like.
Nah, they're playing on a concrete surface. So we The Tampa didn't really rush for. Well, we didn't think they were going to. They only rushed for 67 yards, but they don't need to when the GOAT thrown for 432. So they get close to 500
I will say,
yards.
how many receiving yards did the running backs have?
Let's see. So receiving wise, Mike Evans went over 200 yards, 10 receptions, 207. Fournette had 4 receptions, 19 yards. That's really it. It was really just Mike Evans on those 3 long passes. I mean, other than that, it was just dink and dunk, really. Getting the ball out quick. And then once they realized we weren't really sending a pass rush, they started taking some shots downfield and taking advantage of our beat up secondary, which was the smart thing to do, really.
Yeah, it's not too often that I start feeling sorry for the opposing teams when they play in Carolina Panthers. But I was feeling bad for the tight end for the Buccaneers.
Oh, why's that?
Because him and Tom Brady were not on the same page. And whenever when they was not on the same page, Tom was giving him that look like, you mother.
There was the one where was it I'm trying to remember what happened. Did we fumble near like deep in our secondary or in our backfield or something? But we held him to 3 points. And I think we got like a sack on Tom or something on 3rd down. And he got super mad and like spiked the ball. And they called
they called delayed again. Yeah.
And he looked at the ref like, you know who I am? And then the ref was like,
we know who you are.
You know who you are. Just keep it to yourself, buddy. So the Bucks win the NFC South. They'll move on. It's actually an interesting NFC race. Again, this isn't the end of the Bleav in Carolina Panthers season. Yeah. We'll still be here through playoffs.
I can tell you who I'm rooting for now.
Who?
Yes.
Who you got?
I got the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
49ers.
Yeah, I mean, McCaffrey went off yesterday.
That boy C-Mac hit the sonic boom on somebody yesterday.
49ers are interesting because they got Brock Purdy doing this, which basically proves that they can put anybody at quarterback right now probably and be okay. They can get
Brock Purdy going to be the next Brock Purdy. Y'all heard it here first. He's going to be the next thing closest to Tom Brady.
What?
When it's all said and done. When it's all said and done.
I thought you were going to say Nick Foles.
Think about it, bruh. Tom Brady came alive with a good defense. Okay.
I mean, that's all true. That's all well and good until Tom Brady comes and takes his job next year when he's starting for the 49ers.
And he had a running back to dump it off to.
Man, who was that? Hey, look, the NFC at the top because of the Eagles. I think a lot because of Jalen Hurts getting injured, but because of that happening, the Eagles dropping 2 straight. The Dallas Cowboys might mess around and get the 1 seed next week. Like we don't know exactly who Tampa's going to play.
Don't
Tampa
you talk about the Dallas Cowboys? It don't matter who. It doesn't matter. Dallas ain't making it to the Super Bowl, so we might as well just count them out.
But watch this be the year. Watch this be the year we get a Dallas Buffalo Super Bowl or something, and all this ends, and Dallas finally wins their Super Bowl, and Jerry can finally sell the team or whatever is going to end up happening. But yeah, you're right. Keep up with the 49ers. I don't know about Buffalo so much. I'm thinking maybe Kansas City coming out of AFC. Like, it's funny though, because once you get out of the top 4, like the division leaders for both sides, the whole league is 500 pretty much. They're floating right there at 500. Green Bay might get in the playoffs if they win. They're in next week, and they were left for dead a month ago. We were planning about Aaron Rodgers. So everything has changed. Everything has moved around. Does anyone here on this panel trust the Minnesota Vikings right now? Even though they're 12-4, they're 12-4.
No.
They're 3.
Don't trust Kirk Cousins.
Man, golly, he's the only.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He's a good player.
He's thrown for 25 touchdowns in his first 8 seasons. I think only like 6 or 7 quarterbacks have ever done that. But
how many times has he been? How many times has he been sacked?
Oh, probably more than he cares to remember.
Okay.
He's been sacked a bunch. But still, their defense, Minnesota's defense gives up too many points. I think I said it last week where the offense scored 325, the defense allowed 328 or something, and they were 12-3. They're 12-4 now. And after they gave up a 40 burger yesterday, 4 of their losses, 3 of them have been by blowouts, and it's been to Green Bay, Dallas, and I can't remember who the other one was. And then the other one, I think, was Washington that beat them. So I don't trust Minnesota. It's wide open. I'm saying all this because we're going to mess around and get Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl because it's so wide open and nobody's talking about him. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady's going to be in the Super Bowl. He's going to win his 8th ring, and then he's going to go to the 49ers. That's my prediction.
You want to know something about Kirk Cousins? The top 3 most sacked quarterbacks in the last 5 years. Russell Wilson is number 1. Matt Ryan, number 2.
Boy.
Kirk Cousins, number 3. Listen, I don't know. It's not always on the offensive line for them sacks. Just gonna let you know right now. So field position, time of possession, all those things matter when it comes to winning game. Field position, like which Carolina Panthers, because we have a great punter, right?
Yeah. Oh,
the fact that we can change, the fact that we can like be backed up like in our own 20, 25, and he just boot that thing, and it's just like, oh, never mind, doesn't matter. Field position still good.
20. That's a luxury, man. Coaches don't
so
talk
as
about
a quarterback, so as a quarterback, it's your job not to take sacks, because you putting your team in bad situations as far as field position, and so you getting sacked that many times, bro. You ain't giving yourself a chance.
Minnesota's got a good offense, but I don't know,
that's
man.
1,250 yards of sacks.
It's so wide open. I just don't know. But good thing is, we'll be here. Willie's a little worried we were going to be gone now that we're out of playoff contention. Don't worry, Willie. We will be here. It's not even an expansion. It's just continuation of the coverage. We'll be here for we were just actually talking about this before we came on, and we can talk about this right before we get off here. When can they actually start interviewing and making things official with the head coach thing? Because that has to be first. We got to take care of that before we worry about the draft or anything else. Because if they're going to go get Jim Harbaugh or somebody, that's a different conversation than having Steve Wilks as the coach. So we got to figure that out.
They can start interviewing assistant coaches on non-playoff teams or teams that have a first-round bye. I think, what was it, Stu, like 3 days after Week 18?
Yeah, 3 days after the last game of the season, the regular season.
So Wednesday of next week, they can start officially.
And then after that, everything's after the wild card. So, who knows? If they get a couple of guys in here within the next couple of weeks, and they come and have their lunch in Charlotte with one of the richest owners in the NFL, and then they can add that to the resume, and then then they name Steve the head coach in 2 weeks. Maybe that's what happens, but. I wouldn't be shocked if we find out who gets the job by the end of the month, probably before the Super Bowl. If it is going to be Steve, and I think we all kind of feel like that's what it's going to be, this shouldn't take very long.
Actually, here's the treat. John Mundy, JP Mundy, actually works for me over at Tobacco Road Sports Radio, and he's actually the Pittsburgh fan I've been talking about all year long, Stu. Says someone make Des stop mentioning Harbaugh.
No, I ain't John. I ain't heard Desmond talk about Harbaugh in about 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, though. See, this is what they do to me, Stu. They paint me in this corner and say that I've been saying these things over and over and over again. But I got tape, man. I got receipts. Like literally, I got a whole season of me not doing this.
Stop talking about my dog, man.
Yeah, man. Like
he looks you all the way. He looks you all the way.
Nah, JP's a good guy, man. He does a lot of play-by-play stuff for me. He has a show on Fridays here in the Triad that we produce. So really good dude. Just more glass half empty than half full type of guy. So he's a Steeler fan. So he's used to winning for 45 years. So he can kind of be distant when it comes to other people's teams. But in terms of coaches, I've been on record. If it's not Steve Wilks, go back a Banks truck up to Jim Harbaugh's house and see what he says. But if we're not going that route, I think we'll figure out next week what they're going to do, because we'll start hearing the candidates that they're bringing in the interview. If we see they're bringing in 2 minority candidates, like immediately, they're probably keeping Steve Wilks. They're just probably trying to get past that hurdle so they can go ahead and hire Wilks and get on with the offseason. If you start seeing them going, we're going to interview Harbaugh, we're going to interview
Frank Wright or something.
Yeah, Frank Wright and all these other dudes. That means they're not sold on Steve Wilks and that it's wide open. So I think we'll know really soon what the deal is with Wilks in terms of, is he in? Is he out? Does he have to beat the Saints Sunday? Or is that game just inconsequential now?
I don't think it even matters. I mean, here's my thing with the whole search is that David Tepper knows he has to get this right. So I don't know if I would look at that deep into it if they do start bringing in like a Frank Reich or something like that, because he's going to look at every single option possible and turn over every page that he possibly can, because he knows he has to get this right. Like there's no more time for this thing to keep drawing out and having another rebuild. Like he's got to get this right to get this franchise back where it used to be. So I wouldn't be shocked if he starts bringing in some other guys that, you know, maybe like a Shane Steichen or something like that. But I mean, he's gonna look at everything possible. I don't think it's gonna be as easy as just bringing in a couple of 2 or 3 guys and giving Wilks the job. But I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like at the end of the day, it's easy for us to sit back and say, "Oh, the decision is Coach Wilks." It's easy for us to say that because if things don't pan out, we ain't getting burned for it. You know what I'm saying?
Cool.
So, but I do personally believe that Steve Wilks should have the job. But
I think he's done enough.
Looking from the lens from the owner, he's got to look at this whole thing at the big picture. He's got to actually go in and look at every single option, because if he doesn't, he's not serving, you know, his position to the best of his ability. So that's what people do have to understand, is that Tepper's got to look at all this thing from all different angles. And so that is the reason why this rule is in place. You know, and it gives guys an opportunity to really get good looks and whatnot. And so who knows, man? I'm gonna stay very balanced from here on out until a decision is made. So that way my heart isn't, you know, totally jacked up if things don't go how I think they should go.
For people that are wondering what's going on the right side of the screen, Schuyler's he had to leave because he's
Schuyler's got a Bentley, y'all.
Yeah, Schuyler's chilling in the Rolls Royce on his way over to Bank of America Stadium because he's got to go to the press conference. He's going to hear from Coach Wilks and some others.
Is that a Bentley or a Rolls Royce?
Oh man,
the old joint that goes down. Yeah,
Chrysler 300. Chrysler 300.
We see Schuyler's been using this Bleav money on the Tyler King asked, and we'll go ahead and get this out the way now, though we're going to get asked probably every week. Do you think Carolina would consider giving up a future first-round pick for Sean Payton? No. I don't think the Saints would trade Sean Payton to Carolina, regardless of what they offered. Sean Payton probably ends up in Denver. I'm thinking that seems like a spot where he could land and be okay. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if we went back to the Saints if he's really wanting to coach. Like it ain't like the Saints are like, nah, bro, we good. We don't need you anymore. He could easily be. I could see him with the Saints next year if they got a quarterback or something that he really liked. Tim S says, win, lose, or draw, it's always keep pounding. Wilks did a great job with the hand he was dealt. Absolutely. Again, we've been on the Steve Wilks bandwagon now for 6 weeks. It hasn't been anybody else that we've said we wanted besides Steve Wilks. And I think the Nathaniel Hackett situation in Denver, because Hackett was Aaron Rodgers' quarterback coach or something, wasn't he? Isn't that kind of how he got the job? They thought it would be a good fit. The new offensive wonder kid, young dude. Everybody wants a Sean McVay. Like everybody wants to find that dude. But there's not 30 of those dudes. There's only one. So like stop trying to find an offensive genius on your team.
Yeah, and that's what I'm telling a couple weeks ago. Like you could be a wizard on the whiteboard, but if you don't develop players, if you don't have a vision for the franchise, if you can't get guys to buy in, all that stuff doesn't even matter. Like,
right. Look at the Rams. Look at the Rams and the situation they're in right now. They basically traded off all of their draft collateral for like the next 15 years, it feels like, for that one Super Bowl. And now it's like, can McVay develop, dude? Well, he didn't have anybody to develop. They don't have any draft picks. So it's like they kind of sold their soul to do that. And then it kind of tainted the rest of the coaching pool going forward because everybody wants that next dude. I want Steve Wilks for everything he brought to the table. He matches the profile. He's the fabric of Panther culture. He's a defensive guy, which always works here. And he understands what we need to do. Like, this
Desmond,
shouldn't be hard.
That's what you just said, the fabric of Panther culture. That's who Steve Wilks is.
Yeah.
When the Pittsburgh Steelers go and hire hired Mike Tomlin, they said, "Oh, Mike Tomlin is the fabric of Pittsburgh Steeler Nation culture." That's what you bring in here. So you look at what the Carolina Panthers have been in the past, and you say to yourself, over the extended period of time here, the years that they have been very successful, what has that looked like? It looked like the last 10 games under Steve Wilks.
Every time.
So,
no matter the coach, we've been successful. It's looked like that. Ron Rivera, John like Fox, Don Capers, it's been that formula. So why would we change it? And Tepper just saw what happens when you try to change it. He just went through 2.5 years of trying to change the culture into something else. And think of it like this, David Tepper, Mr. Tepper, you were just a fourth quarter away from hosting a playoff game for the first time in the 5 years you've owned this franchise. And it's due to that dude. It's due to Steve Wilks and Al Holcomb and what they did to flip this around. The players have been vocal in national media saying they want Wilks. What happens if you go hire somebody else after they put themselves out there and said, we want Wilks? You go and hire somebody else. What happens then to the culture of the team? Like, you might get ran out of here. Like, like for real. Like, the Panther fans are at a point where it's like, look, man, Tepper's got to show us something that makes us feel like he cares, that he is invested. And
I got a branding exercise here that I want to do with marketing wise for Steve Wilks. Somebody go and print out some shirts that says www.coach. We want Wilks.coach.
I'm writing this down because I can actually
www.coach or www.steve.
Antoine Grant says Tepper got to give Steve Wilks the job. It's too much upside that he can bring. If he ends the season 6-6, what if he had those games Matt Rule had earlier in the season? I see 3 wins easy. I agree.
Yeah,
I think this was
talked about that.
You said 10 wins. I picked 11 off of the roster. If it had the right driver earlier on, I think they could have
it's really right in front of David Tepper. Like, sometimes it's just too obvious, and you want to go away from the obvious. But I mean, like the team slogan is literally "keep pounding," right? And that's all this team has done since he's taken over the job is keep pounding through the adversity. Whether it was trading Christian McCaffrey, trading Robbie Anderson after his blow up on the sideline, to start 3 different quarterbacks, to again all the assistant coaches leaving, the cold weather. Like, there's always been some sort of distraction, it seemed like, every single week. But it didn't matter. They kept pounding. They kept going through it. They overcame the adversity, and they were in the mix in the final 2 weeks of the season. Like, sometimes obvious is the right choice.
So comments coming in pretty quick here as we get towards the end of the episode. I got to correct Brad Holt here, and Stu was actually on these squads. Defensive head coaches have never gotten us back-to-back division titles. I hope Wilks can be different. Hey, bro, we won 3 in a row with Ron Rivera as a defensive coach. 2014.
Slow your roll there, Brad.
What was it, 2013, 2014, 2015? We were NFC South Division champs. And my man, don't point the wrong way. My man over here, he was on those squads. So,
we did that. We did that.
Yeah, so we love you, Brad.
Listen,
but
Brad, always remember this one thing. If you look at the years past, you would rather take execution over schematics. Yes. You can have the best plan in the world to go make $1 billion, but if you ain't got the execution, it ain't gonna happen.
That happened yesterday in the secondary. You're only as good as your personnel. That's the thing I learned yesterday. Like, if you can't roll out third string cornerbacks and be like, well, we got the scheme. The scheme.
What I would be excited to see is what happens in the draft, what happens in the offseason, player personnel wise, under Steve Wilks.
Yes,
defensive coach.
That's the new thing.
That's a whole that's, oh my God, I just got chills. Woo.
That's what I'm saying. Can you imagine giving Steve Wilks that top 10 pick for him to go get a defensive dude to go put in that defense that he already
I mean, our offensive line, like the way they've been playing this year, they get a whole offseason. Just
sign Deonta Foreman. Because I think he was a 1-year deal. And Schuyler probably correct me on that. lock up Bozeman and Corbett. I think those were 1-year deals. Get them locked in. Get this offensive line for the next couple of years. You got Corral coming back off of IR, so your quarterback situation's sitting there. If a quarterback like Anthony Richardson or somebody drops to you, okay, yeah, fine, we'll take a flyer on that. But you got Sam as a bridge right now. What?
Just in, by the way, JC is done for the year. He's on injured reserve.
So they put J.C. Horn on injury. Okay, so breaking news here at the end of the episode: J.C. Horn's done for the season. Just got placed on IR. No reason to have him out there with a club with them out of playoff contention, and he's a leader going forward on this team. I think that was pretty apparent after watching them without him yesterday. And don't forget Dante Jackson. He gets a bad rep, but we would have been in a better spot yesterday with Jackson out there at least. Like if Dante Jackson had been out there, and they just re-signed him, so he's going to be here for a couple of years. Like you got Jackson, you got JC. Horn, you got
Jeremy Chin.
Gosh, you got Jeremy Chin and Woods at safety. Like there's a lot of good stuff to be excited about with this team, and they're young. Like most of everybody I just named, most of them are on rookie deals. So like this almost sets up where like when Seattle won their Super Bowl with Russell Wilson, that team had a lot of rookie deals, a lot of young guys they drafted in the draft. That's how they built the Legion of Boom. And they were able to do it because Wilson didn't have a big deal yet. So they were able to keep it all underneath the cap. They went and run the ring. Same thing is kind of happening with the Panthers where say you sign Darnold to a team-friendly deal, the other quarterbacks that are going to be in there are going to be on rookie deals. So unless you bring a guy in, which I don't think they would need to do.
Man, speaking of Russell Wilson, taking it off topic right quick. Man, the Denver Broncos, man, look. Like, I'm glad they got rid of that coach. Right?
They didn't look bad yesterday. They didn't look bad. No.
I'm glad they got rid of that coach because that was a problem. So
it might have been the only problem, maybe.
Because I mean, really, like it makes me like look at this whole situation differently. Like if you have somebody really running a team with bad culture, with bad advice, like that's toxic. Yeah. Clearly, some toxic stuff going on in that locker room with that head coach at the position that he was in.
I'm telling you, Sean Payton in Denver.
Because that game yesterday, I was like looking at a whole different team. And then you see Jerry Jeudy go out and defend Russell Wilson. I appreciate that, brother, man. Like, you know, let everybody talk crazy about Russell Wilson. But you as a player in that locker room, you got to take care of your guys. Because only people that know is y'all. And so it was good. It was good to see Jerry Jeudy come and clear the air to let everybody know, nah, all this stuff y'all talking about Russell Wilson is false.
Carl Van says, love Wilks, just want Wilks to be slightly better at game decisions. Feel like that 4th and inches punt hurt us in the end. Actually, I was feeling that way at first until, like we said earlier in this episode, the way they handled the game clock and the situation at the very end of the 4th quarter so that they could get the ball with 3 timeouts left and give them a chance, they did it perfectly. Like, as we were sitting there watching it and they were saying it on the air, what they had to do, normally you're like, well, the coach ain't gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like that's just he ain't gonna do that. He's gonna do something else. They followed it to a T. They got it exactly the way it was supposed to be. So by the time they got the ball back, and actually the botched snap on that punt ended up hurting them because it took 7-8 seconds off the clock because we ended up having a penalty. Or no, they had a penalty, a man downfield or something. So they had to kick it again. So it took 7-8 seconds off. So Sam had like 28 seconds or something by the time we got the ball. But the way they did it for us to even have that shot was game management by the coaching staff. Like that was Wilks and company doing that. So I'm not worried about that at all. Like they're on it.
The fact that punter punted the ball, that's what hurt us.
Killed it, man. Like I was looking down too when it happened because I'm like, man, they about to punt it. We're gonna touch back, blah blah blah. Then I heard a roar from my TV. I look up and the dude's running for his life. I'm like, oh my god, is this about to happen?
I was like, oh man, we about to be in field position, about to score. What?
I was hoping we were going to pick the ball and run. I thought we were going to run it into the end zone. Like, are we going to win this game? Like this? Like this is, you can't write it any better than this. But Willie says this is a young, talented team with potential and a great upside. I agree to that as well. We got to get out of here. We actually ran past where we needed to go. Don't really need to preview the Saints. So what did we decide here, guys? While I got all 3 of you here, do you want to do a second episode later this week, or you just want to come back at the beginning of each week like this? And
we'll come back at the beginning of each week and clear up the news and follow the playoffs.
Cool.
You know, next week y'all gotta find a team to pick. Y'all can't pick the 49ers.
Yeah. But so next week, when we get in here next week, we'll know the playoff field. So we'll do that. We'll do like our early predictions. Who's going to make the Super Bowl? Maybe by next week we'll have an idea of what's going on with the coaching search for the Panthers, where Coach Wilks stands. We'll get an idea on that. Any news or notes with the Panthers roster, any of that kind of stuff. We'll keep you up with all that as we go along. But typically we run until the Super Bowl. So we'll be here with you, giving you full-blown NFL coverage for the next month as we get into the playoffs. And that way we can still cover the Panthers, what's going on with them, the coaching search and everything else. That we'll be gone after the Super Bowl, but we'll be back near the draft for a couple of weeks, and we'll go through draft picks, things that we might want to look at in the draft, because who knows what's going to change between now and then. But I agree, we need to get the coaching situation first before we really start talking about the draft. So we'll do that. Schuyler, again, in the Bugatti on his way over to Bank of America Stadium. Go ahead and switch over to the Panther feed, because they'll be live, I'd imagine, like at 1, I would think, or Schuyler's late. 1:30. So they'll be live at 1:30. Flip over there. I think Coach Wilks will be talking. I don't know who else will have there with him, but Schuyler will be there asking questions, doing his thing for Sports Illustrated. And again, Tyler, great show, guys. Looking forward. I'm going to Green Bay since Jay Stu is going with the 49ers. If Green Bay and the 49ers see each other, the 49ers are going to beat Green Bay, because they always do in the playoffs. I don't know why, especially if it's at Lambeau. So we'll see. We'll get into all of that. That should be fun with the fan base too, where we can start talking about some other teams starting next week. So we'll be back with a brand new episode next Monday. Previous episodes are available on the Bleav Podcast Network. Everything's brought to you by betonline.ag. Go over there and get your bonus with the Bleav code. For Schuyler Callihan and John Stewart, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening and watching the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast on Bleav Podcast Networks. We'll see you next Monday live.